Late night host Jimmy Kimmel did what he does best this week, and he absolutely hammered Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene for their disgusting outbursts during the State of the Union address. Both women, by the way, have doubled down on it and have said they're not apologizing for it and they do not regret it. So on Wednesday evening, Jimmy Kimmel said this during his monologue. Here they are, looking like they're 5 hard seltzers deep at a Thunder Down Under show in Vegas, but it was embarrassing. Even some of their fellow Republicans were embarrassed. And as irritating as their behavior was, we do have freedom of speech in this country, which means I can remind you that Lauren Boebert is married to a guy that went to jail for showing his penis to a teenager at a bowling alley, and Marjorie Taylor Greene spent last weekend speaking at a conference organized by a pro-Putin white nationalist. Yes, we all know about Marjorie Taylor Greene's past weekend in that event, and we know, of course, that she's a terrible person, but let's circle back to the Boebert thing. And this is something I knew about, but something that we haven't really discussed, and I think a lot of people don't know that that happened. Lauren Boebert's husband, before he was her husband, but she was present when it happened, exposed himself to teenagers at a bowling alley, I believe it's 2005, exposed himself to kids at a bowling alley, young girls, and was arrested for it. And he spent 4 days in jail. That was his punishment. 4 days in jail for showing your genitals to these young girls. He, Jason Boebert, was 24 at the time. Lauren Boebert was 17 while they were dating. So, you know, little statutory there, but whatever. They ended up getting married. Everything worked out. And as far as we know, her husband hasn't exposed himself to anybody since then. But I think the public needs to be aware of this. And Lauren Boebert, along with her husband, of course, were banned from that bowling alley ever again. But 4 days in jail for something that typically carries a much harsher sentence. And of course would force people in most states to have to register as a sex offender. But that is who Lauren Boebert is married to. That is the kind of behavior that she looked at and said, oh, I hope he puts a ring on it. Now, any self-respecting woman probably would have walked away from that situation. I mean, but instead you're like, hey, I know he showed his ding-dong to these underage girls, but boy, doesn't that get your motor running. It tells you a lot about her abhorrent behavior. This was actually in January 2004, when this happened. He was arrested for exposing himself to 2 young women at a Colorado bowling alley. His future wife, Lauren Roberts, was her name at the time, who was 17 at the time, was also present and was told she was no longer welcome at the bowling alley. I don't know about you, but I prefer politicians that have not been banned from bowling alleys. As gruesome, well, not gruesome, that's the wrong word. I don't know why I said that. But as disturbing as this was not the first time, or the last time, I guess, that Jason and or Lauren were on the wrong side of the law. As it turns out, a couple years ago, the New York Post actually put together their rap sheets. Stuff that I didn't even know existed. And I do this for a living. So let's take a moment here to go through some of Lauren Boebert's other times that her and or her husband got arrested. Let's start with a country music festival in 2015. A police officer showed up and busted a couple kids for underage drinking. Lauren Boebert decides to go and defend these kids, tells them, run! Run away! Get out of here! He doesn't know who you are yet. So she was arrested because you can't, impede an officer in the line of duty. And of course, you're defending these underage kids who, sure, look, we all drank underage. Trust me, we did. But you can't encourage them to run off. And she also said, because the officer didn't read them their Miranda rights while he was trying to arrest the kids, that they were legally free to go. That's not how it works. Like, you don't get read your Miranda rights until they're about to question you. Sure, they can do it earlier, but as long as it happens before they have you back in the station in the little interrogation room, they can read them to you at any time. It doesn't have to be at the moment of arrest. That's something TVs and movies have instilled in us that is completely false. So learn a little bit, Lauren, before you interrupt more police officers. She also failed twice to show up for court as a result of telling these kids to run off, and so she was arrested for that. A year later, in September 2016, Boebert was charged with careless driving and operating an unsafe vehicle after rolling her truck into a ditch, police said. When she failed to show up for court a month later, a warrant was issued for her arrest. She was booked on February 13th, 2017. She ultimately pleaded guilty to the unsafe vehicle charge and paid $123.50 in fines and court costs. The careless driving charge was dismissed. That's it. She rolls her truck into a ditch, doesn't show up for court, and it's like, oh, give us $123 and you can get the hell out of here. Unbelievable. In September 2010, Boebert was arrested after a neighbor, Michelle Soet, accused Boebert's two pit bulls of attacking Soet's dog. Soet's dog narrowly escaped injury after jumping into a van. The future legislator pleaded guilty to a single count of dog at large, paying a $75 fine. Of course, her husband, Jason, we've talked about the exposure event. And then, of course, in February 2004, he was booked on a domestic violence charge against Lauren Boebert. He did unlawfully strike, shove, or kick and subjected her to physical contact, a spokesman for the Garfield Associate County Court Clerk told the New York Post. They had been dating at the time. Jason Boebert ultimately served 7 days in jail. Lauren Boebert took her revenge in May 2004 during an altercation with Jason at his home, in which she scratched his face and chest and trashed his residence, according to a police report. She was slapped with a third-degree assault, criminal mischief, and underage drinking charges. Because again, she was not 21. A rep for the Garfield County Combined Court said that he could not reveal any information about the case's final disposition. Like, what more do you need to know about who the hell Lauren Boebert and her husband are? You know, I honestly wish Jimmy Kimmel had the time to just read all of that on the air. Because this is kind of shocking stuff, right? Not only is it horrifying that she married the man who exposed himself to two underage girls. And Jimmy Kimmel just said an underage girl. It was actually two. She was underage at the time, dating a 24-year-old. He assaulted her. Months later, she assaulted him. And they think that somehow this is all going to end up in happily ever after. I mean, let's not forget, too, all the weird financial shenanigans that are still being investigated with her husband's company and the campaign and blah, blah, blah. This is all very, very troubling. Aside from her horrid outburst during that State of the Union, this woman's track record and her husband's leads me to personally think that these are dangerous individuals. These are unhinged individuals. And of course, they're both exceptionally trashy individuals. And that, of course, is what the good people of Colorado sent to the U.S. House of Representatives. Good job, guys. Please do your best to fix this in this year's midterms. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share. But again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.